Because very traditional platforms still ask, are you wheatish complexion or whatever. Because I once went into this crisis, what am I? But
it's one thing to speculate about dating in India, but almost no one sees the real data. That is, of course, except our two experts today, Verona's head product managers who sit at the control panel of the modern Indian marriage market, zooming out with a macro lens, tracking patterns, behaviors, and network dynamics across thousands of matches.
If you were in the market for a job and you wouldn't work on your CV, you wouldn't blame the companies or the process of interviews, right?
You're a 32-year-old software engineer in Bangalore. But the moment I say this guy loves hiking over the weekend and his hobby is finding the best ramen in Bangalore, do you not want to talk to him now?
I think that was our mantra going in. Well, how do we enable our users to show what somebody else would discover with them on the third date, let's say?
If you're doing well for yourself, you don't need to be a doctor for you to be impressive.
आज की डेट में अगर तुम्हें म्यूजिक परस्यू करना है तो तुमसे भी बहुत लोग शादी करना चाहेंगे.
Yeah.
And
have you tried to hire someone like a DJ? They're doing well, okay?
Given that families are so involved, your parents are going to get you married. The only thing you lose in that process is agency.
Slightly a tricky question, and it's an emotional question.
There were so many tricky questions.
The biggest lie Indians tell themselves about what they want in a partner is...
I know we have the same answer.
Hello and welcome back to Ask the Expert. Today I am very pleased to welcome our very own in-house product experts for Verona. Welcome Rinal, welcome Shivi.
Thank you.
The two of you possess a well of knowledge that is inaccessible to most of the lay people out there. I'm really interested today to understand how individuals in India make decisions about their partners based purely on the broad ethnographic data that you've observed while working in this area. How many users are in your pool currently?
We have about 20,000 members.
Wow.
A little over 20,000. Yeah.
Okay, so a good amount of data there. What is the single most surprising thing that's jumped out at you while observing user behavior?
Surprisingly, whatever your intuitive understanding of how matchmaking would work, that's true at a macro level. Your basic filters are very relevant.
Okay.
Like the basics of education, income, looks, family background,
right,
cultural, alignment, all of that is still very relevant.
But if we go back a couple of years when we started Verona, the hypothesis was that we're building this for the modern, educated Indian, right? And you would think that the person who watches Netflix, orders their groceries on Blinkit, things like caste, community wouldn't matter to them as much. But I think the most interesting learning has been that family still matters. And these things still matter to the family. And what that ends up doing is that these things end up mattering to people who are in the driving seat of their matchmaking process nevertheless.
And especially if you're looking for a life partner through a portal like Verona, people do tend to look for a partner which is just easier to take back home and, that like your parents would accept and your family would be enthusiastic about. But specifically religion, it's a loaded factor because it does influence cultural values and
tradition.
Exactly. Traditions, how you celebrate a festival. I don't have to be religious to celebrate Diwali, but it's just so ingrained in the way I was raised. So that's why it becomes important to families and people tend to want a happy setup.
Obviously, the politics around caste are very complex and very nuanced. I want to understand your view on caste and its relation to long-term compatibility, if you have any.
There has been enough research, and Verona has done enough research to point to the fact that caste is immaterial to compatibility and long-term compatibility specifically. Like we have seen multiple instances of intercaste marriages which have gone on to become great examples of marriages for their own kids, their families, and for society at large. In the dating world, when you hit it off with somebody when you're in school, in high school, in college, you don't think about these nuances as much because you just fall in love, right? But when you are in the process of finding somebody to get married, it's a difficult process, nevertheless. And we are doing our bit to make it easy, but it still is a difficult process. You want to minimize the reasons and the resistance that your family can throw up, and caste, community, religion just becomes one of the reasons.
My personal hypothesis was that it's going to be irrelevant.
Right.
I also came from a law school background, and the kind of education I had, I didn't think it mattered. And it's not as relevant as it was then. Maybe it would have been a huge deal breaker for, say, our grandparents or even our parents. but it isn't as irrelevant as I thought about it when I got into it. So it's somewhere in the middle, and that surprised me personally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's something that has become more taboo, right? We're just not as open about it, or we'll use euphemisms or softer language like community.
Ethnicity is a
Exactly. What are the filters on Verona's product?
We have so many filters, but I want to talk about 2 filters that, sorry, I don't want to sound like I'm promoting it, but I personally find it so exciting that we are the only platform that have filters for children, whether or not you want children. There is, I can say it confidently as of today, there is no other platform, dating or matchmaking or matrimony, that lets you filter for whether or not you want children once you get married. So that's the first one. And the second, which we also believe is a very modern filter, is whether or not you want to live in a joint setup or you want a nuclear setup, which becomes very important to some people either way.
Yeah.
And some people are open about it.
And I think the point is to move with the times. These filters aren't there just because we want to be modern. These are becoming more and more relevant. People have very strong views on whether they want kids or they don't. People have very strong views on what they want their careers to look like, and hence what they want their mobility in life to look like, and how much influence do they want their parents and in-laws to have. So people come into this market with very strong opinions on how do they want to live after they get married.
Right. Like these individuals who are on the platform seem to have a lot of clarity in terms of what they want, right? They're quite focused on a particular life they want to build. And I think having these filters and having this information clearly stated on a profile when they see it at first will help them make more efficient decisions and be more discerning and not, waste time with someone who doesn't want kids, right? Like, and that's just such a deal breaker for so many people.
It does happen that people change their minds when they meet somebody and they fall for somebody. People do change their minds, but it's still important to go into that decision with a little bit of knowledge on what you're walking into.
And on the topic of filters, are there any particular filters or any information that you've deliberately opted to leave out of the profile initially?
I think physical filters around weight and how fair you are, they absolutely do not have any bearing on the long-term compatibility. And they also change because very traditional platforms still ask, are you wheatish complexion or whatever. Because I once went into this crisis, what am I? But I'm like, I don't know what bucket I fall into.
What do these words mean?
I know, I'm like, wheatish hu, kya hu?
It's a reality that income tends to be a criteria when making decisions. But did you want to briefly touch on like how we see it playing into people's decision making?
It does matter. It's just as simple as that. It has always mattered. It has mattered across cultures. It matters more for men than it does for women. And again, something that has been true across time and across cultures.
Sure.
Personal views aside, like I'm just analyzing at a macro level why that may be the case, right? Until maybe 1 or 2 generations ago, the majority of women didn't work. Families wanted to get their daughters married off into financial security because they didn't want them to ever, quote unquote, be troubled about material wealth. Like the other modern take on income is also financial compatibility. So at some level, if a woman has a certain lifestyle or a man has a certain lifestyle, they may want a partner who fits into that. On Verona, how we approach it is that your income is of course mandatory for us to know, to match you with compatible people. But whether or not you want to disclose that on your profile, it's a mutual decision. So if it's on your profile and the other person has also put it on their profile, you can view their income.
Sure.
Yeah. And that's how we've handled caste as well.
I see. I'm always fascinated by humans and human behavior. Have you observed any discrepancy between people's stated preferences and their actual matching behavior?
Yeah, I think that happens all the time. We look at people's stated preferences and then we look at data where we see that they have expressly said yes to people who are beyond those preferences, or even somebody who were to check all of their boxes and tick all of their requirements, they still say no to those profiles. So that happens all the time. I think what's important for us to take away from that and what we have learned is that people's preferences also change over time. People have a phase of discovery as and when they talk to people, as and when they meet more people, they go through a phase of learning and realization and personal growth as well, that, hey, I thought that mattered, but something else matters more to me.
You deal with profiles all the time. Are there any patterns you've observed about which profiles seem to do better, and how can those in our audience optimize their own profile to present their best qualities and have most success?
More complete and fuller profiles obviously perform better.
Okay.
If you have one picture on your profile and you haven't written anything about yourself and you don't have family details, you're not going to perform as well as somebody who has 6 pictures and a bio and family details. Our entire pool is highly intentional and they want to get married and they're very sincere about looking at profiles intently.
Another thing that's very important is presentation of that information. Because look, the reality is that unfortunately or fortunately, the person looking at your profile has only that much information to make a decision. So to make a strong impression, just putting in a little bit of effort, like maybe not having the same selfie in 4 angles, just having 3 different pictures. Because we do profile reviews as part of our paid plans, and we see a lot of members get a lot of better outcomes from taking in our feedback on these things. Like our consultants who are experts in this take these calls where they advise them. When you are doing this process, it's a very daunting process and it feels like it's tough.
You can give up, you can throw your hands up in the air, or you can blame society, or you can blame the platforms that, hey, this doesn't work, or you can make the effort. I think the understanding that you have to make an effort in marriage and in love is kind of well understood. Think about it this way. If you were in the market for a job and you wouldn't work on your CV, you wouldn't blame the companies or the process of interviews, right? And that's all the information that the person on the other end is working on.
Right. It's like a CV.
Yeah, it is like a CV. And if you're not going to put your best foot forward, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
I think it's just lack of knowledge. Men in our society have never been taught how to present themselves well, right? The entirety of the focus of their lives has been get educated, get a job, and we'll get to marriage and love when we do. So they have no idea what they're supposed to do.
Nowadays, people really value interpersonal chemistry. They value a wavelength match or a vibe match. How do you put science behind vibes?
One of the most exciting things we've done recently has been launching a vibe feature. So the idea is that, of course, those dry demographic things matter, but they're not all that is there to it, right? Like you're a human being, a complete person. And we are really trying to bring out your personality, your vibe, so to speak, on your profile.
Yeah, I think the onus is on the platforms, right? The onus is on us as designers of an experience, of a system, to make it not just easy, but possible for our members to bring out their vibes and their personalities.
Be specific, share an example of one thing that you use as a proxy for vibe. I know there's a whole kaleidoscope.
For example, you're a 32-year-old software engineer in Bangalore. That sounds like devoid of any personality.
And also there could be so many who fit
Yes, exactly. But the moment I say this guy loves hiking over the weekend, and his hobby is finding the best ramen in Bangalore, and I tell you that he has a pet hamster, do you not want to talk to him now?
Yeah.
And all of us are that, right? We all have quirks and personality. It's just a matter of showing it.
And what ends up happening is you end up discovering these things about a person on the third date. Once you've spent enough time with a person, you will discover if you give them the time and you make as much effort. But most people don't. Most people give up.
I think the onus is also on all members to truly treat those people like people. It's very easy to be on a digital platform and just reject. But truly just look at the person and be like, wow, could I just meet them for a coffee? You don't have to marry them, right now. Chill, go for a coffee if they seem nice enough.
Yeah. You may think you're a 10 on 10. You may think you're
And you must be. You must truly be.
Yeah.
But you have to meet people for them to know that you're a 10 on 10.
You're looking at profiles and you're trying to make decisions. On many other platforms, there tends to be this fatigue around evaluating tens of hundreds of profiles at a time. And what I want to understand is your insight into how sometimes limitations can also help us make better decisions.
Yeah, I think we've been through this journey across industries, not just in matchmaking, right? If you think about it, more is better. That's where we started. And then that was basic economics. And then behavioral economics came around and told us that, hey, more choice is not always a good idea. And people started seeing the impact of that. In the world where you swipe through hundreds of profiles in a day and not get anywhere, you can only meaningfully talk to a couple of people at a time. At max, how many people are you going to talk to at any point in time if you're intentional?
Yeah.
And if you have a job in college, maybe.
Time ही कितना है लोग?
Yeah.
हम दिखा देंगे, मतलब you can go through all the members and hundreds and thousands of members on our platform, but it's not good for you. We put in a lot of effort in culling out those profiles, in figuring out who you would match with, who you would be compatible with, who you should spend your time with, because we understand your time is valuable.
I have seen other platforms that are just optimized for giving you a hit of validation every time you get a match. And that does eat into the depth of connection.
It's again a design decision, right? We could design for that. There are platforms and companies who do design for that. Come spend hours and hours on our platform, but we don't want to do that.
I love how we get to learn so much about the direction India is moving in through how they behave on these platforms. And historically, the best thing you could be was like an engineer with an MBA, right? Or, IIT grad, IIM grad. Are things changing in terms of professions that hold the same weightage? Have we evolved past like doctor, lawyer, engineer as being like the cream of the crop?
There are more relevant professions. People are open to trying things out for themselves. Building businesses, entrepreneurship is of course a more palatable career than it was, let's say, in a generation before us.
I think it comes back to family's involvement, like you said too. Like I may find that musician really sexy and like really great at playing the guitar, but if I'm making a decision for like what's going to fit into my family as well, like still their generation's thought process around stability and stable income in the future persist.
And these aren't irrelevant questions. You do want your partner to be competent enough to be able to take care of family. Growth comes on a stable ground, right? So stability hence ends up becoming important, especially when you're thinking about marriage. Maybe not in the dating world as much.
If you're a musician and you're doing really well for yourself, that's awesome. I don't think that's where the modern Indian comes in. If you're doing well for yourself, you don't need to be a doctor for you to be impressive in this day and age. You could be doing something that's traditionally risky, but if you're successful, you're successful. That's that. We do have a lot of people in non-traditional careers on Verona. When we say ambition, we just look at like, are you successful? And successful isn't only money, right? Like that's, I get a lot of these hate comments. Oh, income. Of course, income's part of it. Like it's one of the indicators of success, of ambition, but it's not the only one, right? For example, if you're a Nobel laureate, who am I to reject you? Please hire me. Like it's fine. So it's a very holistic way of looking at success now. I think that's where it's a little more evolved and modern.
आज की डेट में अगर तुम्हें म्यूजिक परस्यू करना है तुमसे भी बहुत लोग शादी करना चाहेंगे.
Yeah.
And
have you tried to hire someone like a DJ? Have you? They're doing well, okay? They're doing really well.
Yeah, absolutely. At an app level, have you found any correlation between increasing income of women and their match acceptance rate?
What happens is men who, let's say, don't make as much as the successful woman does, don't really put in that effort, don't really accept, because they're like, I'm gonna end up getting rejected by this person anyway because she's gonna look for somebody who's more successful than her. It's more of a second order effect of that societal norm and knowledge rather than them just like not getting as many acceptances.
I've experienced this same effect at the level of height. If I'm a certain height, the assumption is that I would want someone of my height or taller. So really great candidates may actually reject me before they even give me a chance to reject them. Just
because
assuming.
nobody wants to face rejection, so they take themselves out of the race.
Or a lot of the potential candidates may actually want someone shorter than them. Like that's a trend we've seen. Majority of women want men taller than them, and a majority of men want women shorter than them. It is what it is. I don't love it, but for your success. If you don't want to be single, don't be rigid about that. Because let me put it this way. I'm 5'5". My filter is 6 foot and above. Now there's a wonderful man who's 5'9", but I never met him.
Never see him.
Because like it was 5'9" and I rejected him. This very viral sound that says 6 foot, blue eyes, finance. So Mrinal sent me an article that said the number of men in US who actually are 6 foot, blue eyes, finance, all of that. And the number is like less than 1,000.
Yeah, and you can imagine in India it's even less.
The moment you start layering filters, you're exponentially reducing your pool.
Right.
So the ones that truly don't matter, just be easy with them. I'm not saying like you need to be radical about it, but if you're 5 foot and you want someone 6 foot, that's kind of radical.
You ask me personally, I don't get the idea of these deal breakers or these hard filters on these demographic factors such as height, location. What matters is, can you have a conversation with this person 15 years hence? Can you sit down? Can you go on a walk with them? Can you stand them on a vacation a decade from now?
Or even now, like for a month, can you be just the both of you and not fight? That's a very high bar, I tell you.
So I think what's so interesting when you enter the arranged matrimonial world, suddenly like you have so many non-negotiables and you impose all of these things that were you to meet organically, you may consider as secondary or tertiary. So all flipped on its head a little bit.
Yeah, be a little open-minded, not necessarily flexible. You can't have 5 deal breakers and expect to find the love of your life or the Prince Charming.
I mean, honestly, you should really introspect and figure out what are those deal breakers. Like, for example, if there's a man who has a family business in Jaipur and he works there and he sees himself working there for the next 70 years, then I understand that moving abroad may be a truly deal breaker for him. But then are 5 other things along with that truly deal breakers. Deal breaker is a very big word, right? Like, it means that if you deviate a decimal, it's a hard no.
So like on this location point, do you recommend that people be a bit more loose?
It depends on your job and depends on if it matters that much to you, right? I had a friend who was just, I never want pets. It's a deal breaker. And she used to say that like every time I would pet a stray dog. She's like, yuck. And now she's married to somebody who wants dogs and she wants dogs. But you should have seen with how much passion she would say that it's a deal breaker for me.
Yeah.
That's just one example versus like, I had friends who in college would say things like, I need to be in these 2 cities because that's where my career is. But over the years, they've realized that like, hey, I'm a little more flexible. Maybe I don't work the job I thought I will work for 30 years.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll switch to a different kind of role or maybe I'll find another job in a different city. But they're like, finding the right person is more important to me than being married to just one city. So it really depends on the archetype and your life story.
Something humans are really bad at is like to anticipate their own evolution and change, anticipate that things can dramatically look so different next year than they do this year. It's just really hard to imagine.
That's
Our
true.
brains can't process it.
That's precisely what I was thinking. Your understanding of your deal breakers and your preferences at point in time. It is your definition of your deal breakers given who you are today. And that's not going to be the person you are in 6 months.
And if you find someone you love, like this is a very romantic take Poshak has actually, our founder. It's not easy to find your person. If you like them, you'll make it happen.
Yeah.
Like you'll move mountains to be with them.
That is romantic. And that is true. Like people would cross oceans.
Yeah.
We have members not just in metro cities, not just in India. We have members all over the world. Have you noticed any differences in how NRIs seek partners or make decisions vis-a-vis those who live in India, grow up here?
Naturally, if you want to marry an Indian, the sheer number of people anywhere abroad, Indians, would be smaller. They're a lot more flexible with the other things if they want an Indian.
Yeah.
If you look at our country, India, we should have been a continent, not a country. Because Andhra Pradesh is as different from Bihar as, Georgia is from Germany. And once you move out of this ecosystem, if you're in the US or in the UK, the Indian from a different state feels a lot closer than somebody who's from a different nationality.
Right.
So NRIs hence obviously are a lot more open. And I think that change, that reflection and that exposure to a different value system also opens them up to a large extent.
That said, since you mentioned the state angle, I wasn't prepared for how big of a filter it is in the matchmaking space. Like language is what you grew up in. It's your shared pop culture. It's how you talk to your grandmother. It's not only regional, it's your language, your ethnicity. And it's very relevant. I understand the feeling of belonging because of language.
Like as a student of linguistics, I understand how it's very much like a proxy for culture and so many other things. But I don't think people talk about it ever until the day comes where you're like, gosh, I just wish he spoke Hindi so he could get the joke that I'm trying to.
Exactly.
He could talk to my dadi, right?
Right.
You account for so many things when you have a shared language. And English, like a foreign language, just doesn't cut it sometimes. Like sometimes you want your mother tongue, you want to connect at that deep emotional level.
Even the so-called cosmopolitan archetype often wants the comfort of their mother tongue when they come back home. So they could be migrants in a different tier 1 city, but they still want another migrant from their city, from their hometown. But I get it. makes sense.
I would too. I may too. Like when I was in the States, like I rarely connected with someone at a romantic level who couldn't also speak Hindi because they couldn't understand half of who I was as a person. Right? Are there any occupational hazards with spending all your time perusing all this data and working with these profiles?
The first thing that I can think of is I can't meet strangers and hear their life story and not fill in their biodata in my head and just like language Bengali. It's just pretty funny.
Right. Do you like, are you always thinking like, who would this person match up with?
Absolutely, all the time.
When we look at users within Verona, you're almost looking at their lives as stories unfolding, as movies, and they are the lead characters in their own stories. And sometimes, given the depth of information and the depth of analytics we have, sometimes we're able to anticipate their story better than they themselves do. What happens is you would see somebody give up in the middle of the process and like, hey, I'm going to take a break, I'm going to focus on my career. And then a few days later, they would come back. And I think it's important to keep in mind for everyone, for our users and everybody else as well, that there's a very low probability of you not finding somebody. You are going to find somebody. So you just have to keep going. There is really no point of getting disheartened or giving up in the middle of the process. So when people do, we're able to see that, hey, that wasn't going so bad. Just stick with it for a couple of more weeks.
All it takes is one person. You know, like it's a game of just meeting people again and again. Like when I say game, I mean it in the most mathematical game theory way. But yes, like you just keep meeting people and you're gonna sooner or later find that one person who you're like, oh my God, I love that guy and I want to marry him.
Wow.
And where were you all this time?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, you had to go through the numbers. You had to, you know,
but that's
put in the
also very
hours.
important.
Yeah.
Because those hours and those numbers and those people who you met and it didn't work out gave you some data to yourself about what you don't want or want in a person.
For sure.
Clearly, it didn't work out because they had something you didn't want, and now you have a data point on yourself.
Everybody who I've talked to, like all the experts we've had who deal in these numbers and like look at things at these macro levels. We had an economist on recently, and they all are so romantic because they are genuinely so optimistic that like you have so much evidence showing how likely it is for people to ultimately find someone, you know, and it can be very reassuring. If it feels hopeless right now, the numbers are in your favor if you choose to put in the effort, put yourself out there, and make it happen for yourself.
Absolutely.
And that's a really crucial piece in this.
Yes.
But if you do choose to put that amount of effort, it's unlikely that you
will not find someone.
Given that our families are so involved, your parents are going to get you married. The only thing you lose in that process is agency. Is to be able to find somebody you would have really clicked with.
Loving someone is a choice. You choose to be with them every day. You choose to accept them. So if you decide to marry them even through the parents' route, there's clearly things about them that you like and enjoy spending time with them, and that's why you chose to marry them.
Okay, slightly a tricky question. And it's an emotional question.
There were so many tricky questions.
What does the data tell us about age vis-a-vis matching for men and women?
It gets equally hard for people beyond a point, and not for any other reason but that people who are unmarried at your age, as you grow older, are just lesser and lesser.
Like a 28-year-old man or a woman will naturally have so many more people who are unmarried at their age than a 35-year-old man or a woman.
Which is sort of an impetus for people to maybe start the process a little earlier than they may expect they need to. Prioritizing this slightly earlier than you may expect could really help you get more options.
Yeah, I think the timing is different for everyone because everybody has their own life and their own trajectory. But like you said, it's important to prioritize this, not put it on the back burner and be like, hey, I'm going to get to this when I get to this.
But that said, it's not all that bleak if you're in your 30s. Like, it's in fact, more and more millennials are choosing to be intentional about finding their partner and are single and looking in their 30s, and it's not at all bad.
Today, Verona's product managers will take turns completing each sentence, and this will harness the insights that you've gleaned over years of working with this. The biggest lie Indians tell themselves about what they want in a partner is...
I know we have the same answer.
Looks?
Yes.
They don't matter as much.
Absolutely. No.
You can accept that today or 10 years from now.
Of course it's important, but it's not
more.
the only thing, and it shouldn't be a deal breaker, so to speak.
One thing that would improve Indian matchmaking culture the most is
People should learn how to say no politely. That's also the thinking behind the ghosting, culture. Like, they just don't want to be in a confrontational space and tell somebody that they're not doing this anymore. So I think overall, everyone would benefit from just being direct and polite and clear about where your head's at.
in 10 years, arranged marriage in India will be blank. Obsolete. No.
Oh, no.
Not in
No,
10
not
years.
So I think
No
it'll be
chance.
driven by individuals themselves than by their parents.
Yeah. That's a good answer.
That's-
One filter we might want to add in the future is like a fun one.
Vibe match.
Vibe match.
Yeah. We've introduced vibes, but now vibe match is the next thing we would like to do.
And for the closing, really rapid, I want you guys to tell me what your favorite part about your job as product managers in this world is.
When people get married off Verona.
Okay.
It makes my day. It makes my week, month. I can't tell you how happy I get. It is the most heartwarming feeling. Like, I get happy for Verona couples the way I would for like my best friend. Oh my God, we are so happy for you. Every time they get married, it's like mithai in office and everyone's cheering.
You get to impact the lives of so many people. It's a very, very meaningful step at a very, very meaningful milestone of their lives.
Yeah. And harnessing like the power of technology to do that. I think we're blessed to be able to like use tech to help people in a really human, genuine way. Thank you so very much, both of you, for joining us.
This was so
a
much
pleasure.
fun.
So with that being said, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do be sure to hit subscribe, share it with your friends, and leave in the comment section below what more questions you'd like us to ask Shubhi and Renala next time they're on the pod. We'll see you later. Bye.